And hello, I'm your moderator. My name is Cherise Myers. It is absolutely my pleasure to get you really excited about that. We are almost at the time to announce the winners for this year's awards. And kind of the build up to that is that we are going to really help companies get zoomed in on what it takes to win one of these awards. And you're going to get that from three judges. Specifically, we're going to tune in to two consummate professionals, Jeff Lin and Eric Mitchell. I'm going to read a bit of their bio to you. Let's start with Jeff. Jeff Lin is the co-founder of Admerasia. And as the world gets smaller and as the avenues to reach global audiences get infinitely more complex, Jeff keeps it simple. He looks for the and. What is the and? That's the relevant culture connection points between brands and consumers that makes communication real. Over his 25 plus years in the global communication market, Jeff has been obsessed with finding the right and for his clients and to create impact with customers on local and national and even global scales. And who has this approach benefited? Clients like Hennessy, clients like Nissan, clients like Mercedes-Benz, clients like the Diva, and so many more. Jeff is also all about the good work. He believes that for brands to truly connect with an audience, that they must be active. I'm going to add this in, Jeff, boots on the ground. And throughout his career, he has been a strong advocate for representation in advertising and serving the interests of Asian American communities. This has included initiatives covering representation and inclusion to tackling societal issues like anti-Asian hate. Jeff believes that the world of marketing and advertisement is a big table and everyone deserves a seat at it. Now let's go to Eric Mitchell, who is serving currently as the Assistant Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion at AT&T. Eric has years of experience, and his team collaborates with and partners across the company to develop and execute a focused strategic plan of diversity and inclusion initiatives, activities, training, and sponsorship to make AT&T an employer of choice, a preferred business partner, and an important contributor to the community. With almost 4 decades of service at AT&T in the different families of companies, Eric has considerable experience leading change and growth initiatives across a wide range of HR functions. He's led, tested, and developed methods during the implementation of the American with Disabilities Act. He has directed recruiting and staffing services during a dynamic period of the company's growth. Eric has implemented and led the operations of AT&T's HR service delivery model through a number of company mergers. Eric is a native California guy, but he is currently now residing in Dallas, Texas. Two amazing professionals. And we have an opportunity not just to work together to judge this year's and come up with the award winners who, I'm sorry, but you'll get no information from us today on that. That comes up a little bit later, right? But what you will get is some information so that you can assure that your company is among the winners next year. So here's my first question. Let's project into the future, right? If you're a judge for Age Society's 2021 corporate survey, which would you say is that the companies really need to be doing, or I'll say the opposite too, maybe not doing. What do the companies need to be doing or maybe not doing to engage and support APA talent? What stands out as a 2021 issue that if they're going to be winners next year, companies need to be doing this now?
I'll start with that one, Cherise. I think one of the things that's very important, that's come up several times during the conference, is that companies need to make sure they're really connecting authentically with their APA talent. And they need to perhaps do it to meet that gap between what those employees are used to doing for themselves and what they really need. So we've heard very often how Asian Pacific Islander employees won't necessarily speak up, won't necessarily, make demands to management on what they want and need for their career advancement. So maybe we need to help them do that themselves. And that can be particularly important when we want to match them up with opportunities like sponsors or mentors, but finding that way to really connect and help the programs that we want to provide to them really catch on.
Jeff, do you have anything to enhance that?
Yes. Actually, first of all, it's very honored to be on the panel with you all. And I also have the privilege to help supporting Asian Society on the corporate survey for the past 5-6 years. Admerasia has been putting together the survey and the reports as well. From my observations, we see a lot of great progress within so many corporations doing such a great thing for the APA community. I just want to put a little bit backdrop before if we go further. It's important to know that the survey is conducted during the prime of the Black Lives Matter 2020. The survey ended at the time the Asian hate crime just about the tipping point about the breakthrough all the news. So knowing that 2020 is really the time of Black Lives Matter. Every corporation, every society, every one of us was so heartfelt and passionate about injustice and how the diversity need to be. So from the submissions, we noticed that a lot of corporations have so much effort focused on the Black Lives Matter. They fail to address specifically to APA, like Eric just mentioned. And so many programs have not been implemented in 2020. And that also showed that through employee survey. The employee also mentioned that a lot of corporations fail to address the racial equity subject, into the company. Even though everybody working from Zoom, they feel that they've been subject to some discrimination with their coworkers as well. And I think that I'm very confident and very hopeful. I know that the society has paid a lot more attention and understand the significance about the society has bring to us, and so much things that we learned, the lesson from the Black Lives Matter and how things we can implement better. The fact is, a lot of corporations, you have a lot of great programs and you have a lot of a great system in place. And I think that a lot of issues can be addressed. And I'm simply very hopeful, same as Lulu said, mentioned yesterday on the opening session. We all very, very hopeful.
Hope is definitely something that we need to tap into in 2021. I also am a firm believer in strategies, though, right? And so as we are now in 2021 and we have opportunities for strategy and policy and procedure, and not only policy and procedure just in written form, but we're talking about really tapping into the hearts and minds of your APA population and finding out what their needs are, right? And so from your vantage point, right, you're business owners, Jeff, co-owners, you are executives and leaders in your companies, and I really want to know, and Jeff, you kind of started to tap us into that, right? What were the gaps? What was missing in the responses from the companies in the 2020 applications for what was missing? What do they need to assure that they include?
Yeah,
now?
so I'll build on what Jeff already started sharing, which is there were some submissions we saw where there was a lack of specificity. So they talked about a program for talent development, for mentoring, for sponsorship, for employee resources groups, but they spoke about it in general. And so it wasn't clear what the impact was for the Asian and Pacific Islander employees in particular. And that's what we're focused on with this work. So I think as long as you make sure that in your responses, give the full view, that's great. But make sure you also narrow it down to the impact for the population that we're actually trying to address. And that will definitely enhance the submission.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of want to tap the companies into something that I call the funnel method, right? And the funnel, if you just look at the version of it, right, it starts out big and then it comes down to be really small. And you can do that funnel method, starting out big and going small, or you can flip the funnel and you can start specific and then get general. But in essence, what Eric is tapping you into is that we really do want to hear what you are doing for the APAI. We want to hear that. And we are interested in your amazing programming and the vision as well. We do want to hear what you're doing for this population. Any more that you want to say to enhance that, Jeff?
Yes, on top of what Eric has mentioned, I just want to point out it's constantly, it happens to a lot of corporate submissions, is there's a difference between, most of the companies that participate are global companies, and a lot of the submissions fail to identify APA specifically versus their global Asians. And they are two different, very different the audience we're talking about. And I think that again, as I mentioned, most of the corporations have a great system in place. You have great programs. It can be easy to adopt. And what in the Asian Society survey specifically, we want to hear more about APS specifically, Asian American. And on the subject specifically, I think that the one point that it the surface that through the corporate survey as well as the employee address, the most key important element is mentorships and the sponsorships. I think earlier sessions, Catherine and Peggy had just touched about the most valuable, point about the mentorship program, and I think that can be applied to everybody in every corporation exists. But me as an Asian American, I feel that there's a certain shoulder, the baggage of being, Asian, the mono minority, and being a good employee. And sometimes we may not speak out. Sometimes we may not participate. So I can see the difference from the corporate submission versus the employee, the survey, that there's a discrepancy about the participation. And I would strongly call out to my fellow Asian Americans, let's be more visible and more representative. Let's be more participate about if any, program and any events within your corporations. Let your voice be heard and let be your actions be seen. And I think that we need to take part as well to be in the table in the conversations with the other group.
So I don't know, Jeff. Maybe I know some different Asian Americans because I'm telling you, I've got a bunch of friends, yourself included, who know how to assure that their voice is heard. So I kind of want to kick that over to our viewing audience, right? Whether it be from the company perspective, and if you're on the line and you're from the company perspective, can you tell us in the chat from the company perspective, if you make space for Asian Americans to bring their voice to the table? And then if you are here and you're joining us from the employee perspective, I want to hear from you in the chat. Are you standing up, using your voice, having courage to tell your employer what it is that you need to be actively participating, actively growing. Often employers can't read your mind. It isn't that they don't want to support you. Maybe they don't know what you need for you to be supported. So it is our responsibility, and I'm saying our because obviously, right, I'm a brown girl, and it's our responsibility as what they call minorities to share what it is that we need, bring our voice in the room and to the table. There are going to be all sorts of data that will be released in the survey. And the reason we're focused here on America is because the playing field isn't level yet, right? When you look at the C-suite, it is not loaded with Asian Americans. It's not loaded with African Americans. And we want you to have a seat at the table. And some of that responsibility means that you have a responsibility to tell companies what it is that you need. That's basically what Jeff is saying. And so we were getting a little bit specific there, Jeff. And that's because I'm sure that you've got all these years of experience of being a judge and working with Asia Society. Can you give the companies just a couple of tips, just a little bit of insight into like some of the questions? Maybe there's some companies here who really haven't, had a submission before, like a couple of the categories maybe that they would need to kind of tap into. I'm kind of leaning towards assuring that they understand the importance of getting the employees involved as well. What are a couple of the categories, Jeff, if you remember a few? I'm here to help too, by the way.
Yes, I think I think the society is very, very different 2021 now. It's very different than 2019. And we've been doing the survey for 12 years, and there's many different categories that's important for every professional grow within the corporations, and there are many elements in the corporations that can provide to the employees as well. But we also, every corporation also need to have a share of sense of social and justice responsibility. I think Black Lives Matter changed the world in everything, and perhaps there are certain areas all the company can continue to address the racial inequity in everywhere within the society. Very often, and we see that a lot of mistakes from the corporations, that they will emphasize on one segment, whether it's LGBT or Hispanic or African American or Asians, but they take one and sacrifice for the advancement for the other. Instead of look at the whole thing as a whole. And I understand that, you look almost like you look at it in the inheritance, right? Something you want to pass down within 100 million, how are you going to slice it? I know it's challenging, but reality is maybe that's not the right equation. We have to look at how society has changed, and maybe the member needs are different. Very often, for example, when the situation changed and the budget being cut, I just want to say that it's not just about one segment being cut, because the budget affected to the supplier, the vendor, the community, and things will all, it's a change of the impact. And from agency perspective and marketer perspective, we have to look at the social responsibility as well, and not just about the profit margin.
Love it. Anything
and
to
I want to build on what Jeff said in terms of the survey and the fact that, very often companies do more of same and they don't really up their game. And I think there are a couple of different ways to do that as we move forward, given the circumstances of the past couple of years. One in particular is address the intersectionality. I know we're focused on the Asian and Pacific Islander community, but where are there opportunities within that community to look at it's not a monolith, it's a diverse group of people. and of course, a lot of people think, yes, there's Chinese, Japanese. I mean, there's differences within the Asian cultures and nationalities, but even the other dimensions, there's the experience of Asian women versus Asian men, the experiences of straight Asians versus LGBTQ plus Asians. And those are not all going to be the same experience, and they're not all going to have the same needs. So as you adjust your programming to meet the distinct needs of that diverse community, it's going to be a much richer program. And helping that community reach out and partner with other communities within the business. So as Jeff's point, don't just focus on one segment at the expense of others. You can really do something that, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? You can help folks partner to address, the objectives together. And an example I saw recently is where the Asian employee group was engaged to help support the company in how they were responding to the Black Lives Matter and the racial reckoning in the United States. And this was even in advance of them becoming the focus through, Stop Asian Hate. And you can just go from community to community because all of these folks at some point in their history, either for their community or personally, they have been the other. And so they can empathize and they see the benefit in joining forces for what we're all after.
What is amazing in this, and I have to be clear, there's no other place that I am looking to live, right, in America. But in America, at any given time, everyone has been the other, right?
That's right.
Everyone has been the group that's experiencing injustice. And so I love that this year's theme for this entire event is all about solidarity. Because if we all come together, and I feel like what was mighty about the Black Lives Matter movement was that everyone came together. And I want to see everyone come together against Asian hate and against anything that's against any group that is here living in America, period. Solidarity is the key. And so I feel like we were working our way around to giving these companies some tips on how they can succeed. And I want to just tap into, because we did have some good, great, and amazing submissions. So I want to know from you, without naming the company, obviously, right? Because the winners are coming up. I just want to keep mentioning that the winners are coming up. Without mentioning the company, did you have some submissions that just wowed you? And if you did, tell me why. And if you didn't, then tell me why they didn't wow you. Did you have some companies that wowed you?
I do. Okay, because I do have a company for the past consecutively several years, and I don't name names because I don't want the DC show the preferences. But once we reveal the winner, you will know. This company has been consistently addressing, in fact, really specifically a subject, and they've clearly identified ABA versus non-digital global agents, but also they decide the program internally on the mentorship, the C-suite engagement through multiple layer dimensions of the sponsorship and the promotions. But they also have a specific evidence and example and how they actually reach out to the community, to the consumer. And as Asians, 70%, percent of the Asians are first generations immigrant, and so they rely. The communities are very. It's different from the general media in the broader reach. A lot of the consumer really rely on a lot of mom and pop shop in local organizations and support. And another thing come to like Eric was mentioned that there's various of the ethnic diversity of the community across the country, and a lot of these companies particularly put a lot of effort and reaching out to the community. And I always really touched about how they put in all the example and by percentage and data and how they can show that the year-to-year growth and what they do it. So without saying specifically Eric, but I think that some company doing really, really amazing work.
So
I would agree.
Some companies are boots on the ground. Okay, Eric, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and I would agree. And what stuck out for me for a couple of the companies was the fact that they were working multiple modalities. So whether it's a leadership program, it's mentoring, it's sponsorships, they weren't focused on one way of doing it. They were doing it virtually. They were doing it one-on-one. They were doing group sessions. They were doing, a number of ways to meet people where they are so that they could all benefit from the program and not just be, this was just for the folks at headquarters, or it was just for the folks in this region, or just the folks at this particular management level. And that meant that they were able to really scale their impact and touch hundreds of employees rather than just dozens. And I think where companies are able to really expand their efforts and grow for the larger benefit, these are the things that stuck out for me when I was looking at the award submission. Yeah.
Okay, so we have.
I want to add. We have at one point to
absolutely.
Cherise, you mentioned actually some companies have a very clearly identified the program not only to APA, but they also mentioned about the same thing, how they apply to African American and Hispanic, and I thought that's a plus point to me as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we're giving you some hints, some tips, some strategies that you can utilize, right? This thing, solidarity, keeps coming up, and we want to assure that the companies are successful in really reaching out and getting Asian Pacific Americans into the company. Once they're in the company, we want to assure that you're engaging them and retaining them, right? So recruitment, engagement, and retention. And think really, really strategically about what you're doing through the life cycle of the Asia Pacific American employees in your company. So we've got a couple of minutes left. I'm just going to tap in to see if there are any questions that you have. Do you want to know anything about how your company can be successful and be the company of choice, right? Be an employer of choice so that you can not just win this award, but really genuinely engage the APA population in your company. So do we have any questions, and do we have any responses to my initial question, which was, is your company making space for the APA population to bring their voice to the table, right? If it's known as a population that maybe, has been taught to work hard, keep your head down. How are you assuring that they lift their heads up and bring their needs to the table? 2020, or our judging period, this was a pretty special time, right? Everybody was in their separate kind of spaces to assure that we were all safe. And you would have had to make some additional efforts to assure that everybody had a voice in how the company moves forward. So looking to see if you have any questions. And if not, then I am going to tap into Jeff and to Eric to see if you have some closing thoughts on how we can assure that these companies are successful, so much less about winning the award and so much more about recruitment, engaging, and retaining APA talent.
Okay, so one of the things I think is helpful, and the survey that's done with the Asia Society is one tool for that, but there are many that companies can create for themselves or get from other sources, is validating the impact of your programs with the employee feedback. Because you can build what you think is a great program, but then you get the results back from the employee survey, say from the Asia Society, indicating that maybe it isn't having the impact as broad and wide as you thought. Maybe there are areas that are still not feeling that wonderfulness, and you need to make sure that there's a focused effort there. And so I think that you need to really make sure that you're constantly measuring the effectiveness of your programming and then making adjustments to that so that you really are responding to the group that you're trying to provide support and provide uplift.
And I'm always joked about it, that every year working on the survey and working on the result, I always wondering if there's a chance for, the winner, the company to share their best practice to the other corporations, right? I think the report is going to be released after today, and there's a lot of words of wisdom and the great practice a lot of the companies can learn from. I always wish every year more companies can participate and more submissions we can review. We took a lot of time to review all the submissions, but I wish that there'll be more, and there will be more talents like Eric and Cherise, as more judges can join this as well, because this is just amazing progress from Asia Society.
So I'm getting something that says that I have some questions, but I am not seeing the questions. It's not coming over from the other platform. I would definitely like for you to have an opportunity to answer those questions. So what I will say and commit to is that any of the questions that you did send us, I will have the team send them, and we will send them the questions to Jeff and to Eric, and we will assure that your questions get answered. Okay, I see two. What is Asia Society's plan for expanding the number of companies that participate in the Asian Corporate Awards? I'm going to start with that by saying, being a part, having this kind of a platform, right, where the judges are actually talking to you and telling you what the expectation is definitely a part of utilizing a strategy, right? We're tapping you into what is needed, what's required, how can you participate? But I'll ask definitely Jeff and Eric to expand upon that. How can we get more companies to participate?
So I think that what we were asked to do as partner companies, would continue, which is to publicize the opportunity for the survey, for the participation, and the information and benchmarking that you can get, and just make sure more companies are aware. I think, 2020 was a difficult year. I mean, my own company was not able to participate in the survey, which is why I was able to be a judge. But it does mean that you need to make sure that people see the benefit, and those of us that are associated with the Asia Society all have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Eric's addressed it pretty accurately. There's been really a big challenge, and it's the testing time is the first time ever. I don't think that they've been prepared for what happened, the pandemic in the year. But moving forward, I think we have Asia Society has built its pretty successful program and continue to grow of the result. We hope that with this bump over, this is like a stock market, right? There's an up and down, and there's a infrastructure fluctuated in different time. And given time, I believe that the whole society as a whole and every company and province as a whole, we find a way to do better.
So I want to also incorporate some individual questions, right? That was a question from the perspective of a company. And now we also have a question about how can we best dispel the model that is centered around myths, the minority myths. How can one best advocate for their career and dispel the myths? This is going to be our last question, in response.
So I think Jeff has made this point, which is you maybe need to step out of character and speak up in a way that you have not done before. I think one effective way to do that is to not just look for mentors and sponsors that are people like you. So of course you need to see it to be it, but sometimes it's good to broaden and look for mentors and sponsors that are not like you. And then, because you're going to catch their eye, and then they're going to tell you what their particular secret for success is, which is something you may not get from your own community. And then, and you can just build on that for your future growth.
So Jeff, did you want to add to that? And then I want
No, I said right on. I mean, I've been to so many different sessions and everybody talks about the minority for the whole year. We know that that's the baggage that we all carry, generations to generations. It's a very different era now, and it's a very different task ahead of us. And we need to embrace the changes and in every way. But we had to start from our own. So again, we're very hopeful. We'll do another step, but we'll get there.
We will get there. And that brings us back to the solidarity. That brings us back to that this particular award and recognition event is really all about assuring just that you get an opportunity to move your career forward, that you have an opportunity to pull up and have a seat at the table, that we see you on boards, that we see you in the C-suite, that we see you succeeding here in America. It's not only just your dollars that matter, you matter. I can really, really say that Asia Society is looking to bring forward that these awards exist so that more companies can get involved, so that you can succeed right here in America. Thank you for tuning in and hearing what the judges have to say. We are certainly going to be here for the awards ceremony. And if you would like to reach out to us, please do get in touch with us, right? We're all on LinkedIn. We want to connect with you. We're here for you. Thank you.